kills more than salt, the worst fruit for your heart, new scientific discovery. Did you know there's a fruit that can be more dangerous for your heart than salt itself? Yes, a fruit. Something you always believed was healthy, natural, and even recommended for your health might actually be silently destroying your cardiovascular system. That's right. Your daily consumption, that seemingly innocent snack, might be opening the doors to problems like high blood pressure, clogged arteries, heart attack, and even sudden death. And the scariest part, this fruit is present in the daily routine of millions of people all around the world. The worst part is that it doesn't smell dangerous nor taste dangerous, on the contrary. It's sweet, practical, light, but hides a silent bomb inside it. And nobody told you this until now. By the way, maybe you've heard that if it comes from nature, it's good for you. Be careful with that belief, because what you're going to discover today might forever change the way you see your diet, and especially your heart health. If you care about your health, your future, and your quality of life, this video is simply mandatory. We're going to talk about fruits that, although they seem harmless, have the potential to cause inflammation, sugar spikes, liver overload, increased blood pressure, and accelerated wear on your heart. And among them, there's one that carries the title of the most dangerous of all. A fruit that, according to recent studies, might be even more destructive for your heart than consuming too much salt. But attention, don't think it's the fruit everyone already suspects. No, the truth will surprise you, and might be right now in your house, in your fridge, in your pantry, or, worse yet, on your plate. If I were you, I wouldn't leave this video for anything, because understanding this now might be the difference between living longer and living less. Number 16. Ripe jackfruit. Ripe jackfruit is an extremely tasty tropical fruit, fragrant and irresistible to many. Its sweet flavor and soft texture make it a popular choice in various regions. However, behind all that sweetness, there is an important warning that needs to be given, especially when we talk about cardiovascular health. As jackfruit ripens, its carbohydrates almost completely turn into glucose and fructose, greatly raising its glycemic index. This means that when you eat ripe jackfruit in moderate or large amounts, your body is subjected to an almost immediate sugar spike, which overloads the pancreas and cardiovascular system. These constant glucose spikes are the main triggers for chronic inflammatory processes. And you already know, silent inflammation is the big hidden enemy of the heart. It favors artery hardening, contributes to the formation of fatty plaques, and significantly increases the risk of hypertension, heart attack, and stroke. Another problem with ripe jackfruit is how easy it is to eat too much. Its pods are small, sweet, and addictive. It's very common for people to eat 10, 15, or 20 pieces at once without realizing they're ingesting a huge amount of natural sugar, which behaves very similarly to refined sugar in the body when consumed excessively. This doesn't mean jackfruit needs to be completely banned. If consumed in small portions and within a diet rich in fiber and anti-inflammatory foods, it can be part of a healthy diet. The problem arises precisely in excess frequency and the false belief that, because it's fruit, it doesn't harm. So here's the warning: if you love jackfruit, control your portions and stay alert. Your heart will thank you. Number 15. Peaches in syrup. Peaches in syrup are often associated with quick, practical desserts that seem healthier than industrial sweets. However, this is a dangerous illusion. When peaches are soaked in sugary syrup, their nutritional composition completely changes, and the impact on heart health can be devastating. The big villain here isn't the peach itself, but the absurd excess of added sugar present in the syrup. This sugar turns a fruit naturally rich in fiber and antioxidants into a glycemic bomb, capable of causing blood sugar spikes, overloading the pancreas, and provoking inflammation throughout the circulatory system. These inflammations are extremely harmful to arteries, which start to lose elasticity and become more prone to fatty plaque formation. Over time, this directly raises the risks of hypertension, heart attack, and stroke, besides accelerating aging of arteries and heart. Another worrying factor of peaches in syrup is that because they are preserved in sugar, they lose a large part of their soluble fibers, which are precisely responsible for helping control glucose absorption and protecting the cardiovascular system. What's left is basically sugar, empty calories, and a sweet taste that deceives even those who think they're making a lighter choice. Constant consumption of this kind of food is directly linked to increased visceral fat, the type of fat that accumulates around organs and is extremely harmful to the heart. Therefore, if you like peaches, opt for fresh, natural fruit without added sugar. Your heart, arteries, and overall health will thank you a lot. Number 14. Maraschino cherries. Maraschino cherries are another classic example of how a naturally healthy fruit can turn into a threat for cardiovascular health after industrial processes. Fresh cherries are rich in antioxidants, fiber, and anti-inflammatory compounds. However, when soaked in sweet syrups and preservatives, they become a real problem for the heart. The amount of sugar present in maraschino cherries is simply scary. A small portion contains as much sugar as a chocolate bar or even more. And as you already know, this sugar causes immediate glycemic spikes, which generate inflammation, oxidative stress, and metabolic overload, three factors that accelerate artery aging and drastically increase the risk of heart diseases. Another critical point lies in the additives and preservatives present in this type of food. Sulfites, artificial dyes, and other chemical compounds increase inflammatory stress even more in the body, compromising the function of cells and the circulatory system. It's like the body has to work twice as hard to handle not only the excess sugar, but also the toxins present in these foods. Furthermore, just like with peaches and syrup, maraschino cherries lose practically all their dietary fiber, meaning there is no natural brake for rapid glucose absorption. This overloads the pancreas, favors visceral fat accumulation, and leaves the heart extremely vulnerable. The most worrying part is that many people consume maraschino cherries without even realizing the harm it's causing, thinking that since it's a fruit, it's risk-free. But the truth is that this type of food should be seen the same way we see industrial sweets, candies, or sugary desserts. Therefore, if you want to take care of your heart, make a conscious choice. Avoid maraschino cherries and prefer fresh, natural cherries without syrup, sugar, or traps. Number 13. Raisins. Raisins are often seen as a practical and healthy option, but few know the risks they pose to heart health. Being a dried fruit, raisins have a high concentration of natural sugars. When grapes lose their water during drying, the sugar becomes much more concentrated, which can be a real problem for those seeking to protect cardiovascular health. Have you ever stopped to think about the impact this excess sugar can cause in your body? Frequent consumption of raisins can lead to blood sugar spikes, contributing to insulin resistance and favoring silent inflammatory processes in the body. And as we well know, chronic inflammation is one of the biggest villains when it comes to heart diseases and circulatory problems. Furthermore, excess blood glucose doesn't only affect those predisposed to diabetes. It also directly impacts artery health, promoting vessel hardening and increasing the risk of hypertension, heart attack, and stroke. Imagine then consuming daily a food that seems harmless, but little by little may be sabotaging your heart. Another point to pay attention to is the false perception that natural foods are always risk-free. Raisins are a concentrated source of calories, and if combined with a diet already rich in carbohydrates, can overload the cardiovascular system even more. It's that story. The difference between medicine and poison is often in the dose. This doesn't mean you have to completely eliminate raisins from your life. But it is essential to understand that consumption must be extremely moderate, especially if you already have risk factors like hypertension, high cholesterol, or family history of heart diseases. Conscious choices make all the difference in your long-term health. So if your intention is to protect your heart and live longer and better, start paying closer attention to what seems harmless. Raisins, despite being small, can have a huge impact on your health if consumed uncontrollably. And worse, it's far from being the most dangerous fruit on our list. What comes next might surprise you even more. Number 12. Ripe mango. Ripe mango is a tasty, refreshing, and nutrient-rich fruit, but it hides a detail that many ignore when it comes to heart health. As mango ripens, its natural sugars become increasingly concentrated, significantly increasing its glycemic load. This means frequent consumption, especially in large amounts, can be harmful to those seeking to protect the cardiovascular system. When we eat a very ripe mango, our body receives a significant load of fructose and glucose. This excess causes blood sugar spikes that, over the long term, favor inflammatory processes in the body. And this inflammation isn't something we feel immediately, but rather a silent process that wears down artery walls and increases the risk of hypertension, heart attack, and other cardiovascular diseases. Also, excess fructose, when not used as energy, is converted into fat in the liver, contributing to visceral fat accumulation. This fat, in turn, releases inflammatory substances that directly impact heart health. And the worst part, this process doesn't show clear signs until the problem is already advanced. Another worrying factor is that many people believe that because it's natural, mango presents no risks. Of course, in moderate amounts and as part of a balanced diet, it offers benefits. However, daily uncontrolled consumption, especially of very ripe mango, can be a true disguised poison for the cardiovascular system. Therefore, if you're a fan of this delicious fruit, the tip is consume it in moderation, prefer less ripe mangoes that have a slightly lower glycemic index, and always include this choice within a balanced dietary context. Small changes make a huge difference when it comes to heart health. And look, if you already thought ripe mango could be a problem, I'll tell you, the most dangerous fruit of all is yet to come. It will be revealed only in the last chapter, and you will be surprised by what I'm about to tell you. Number 11. Very ripe banana. Banana is one of the most consumed fruits in the world, appreciated for its practicality, taste, and countless benefits it offers. However, when we talk about very ripe banana, we need to raise a warning, especially for those who want to protect their heart. The ripening process makes its sugar content increase considerably, turning it into a source of fast and intense glucose. Furthermore, very ripe banana is extremely rich in potassium. And although this mineral is essential for the balance of heartbeats and regulation of blood pressure, excess can be a real problem. When there's more potassium circulating in the blood than necessary, it can directly affect the heart's electrical function, increasing the risk of arrhythmias, palpitations, and in extreme cases, even cardiac arrest. Imagine a person who already has kidney problems, something common in people with high blood pressure or diabetes, who consumes very ripe bananas frequently. The body cannot efficiently eliminate potassium, and the levels of this mineral can reach dangerous thresholds, putting the heart at serious risk. Another worrying point is that besides high potassium, very ripe banana also has a higher glycemic index than green or slightly ripe bananas. This means it quickly raises blood sugar levels, contributing to chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and consequently to artery wear and cardiovascular system deterioration as a whole. Therefore, if you love bananas, the best choice is to consume them when they're still firm, with few dark spots. This way, you get their benefits like fiber, vitamins, and minerals without overloading the heart. Moderation and balance are key words when it comes to heart health. And here's something curious. Even though very ripe banana is concerning, it's still not the biggest villain on our list. Stay with me, because in the last chapter of this video, I'll reveal the fruit that is simply the most dangerous for your heart. Number 10. Fresh fig. Fresh fig is a sweet, juicy fruit full of flavor. At first glance, it seems like a healthy choice. After all, it comes from nature and offers fiber, antioxidants, and a good amount of vitamins. However, there is a detail that many ignore. Fig is extremely caloric and has a very high natural sugar content, which, in excess, can be a hidden danger for cardiovascular health. When consuming figs regularly, especially in large quantities, the body receives a significant load of fructose. The problem is that excess fructose not processed as energy is transformed into fat in the liver, raising cholesterol levels and promoting visceral fat accumulation, one of the biggest villains for the heart. Additionally, the sugar in figs, when in excess, directly contributes to chronic inflammation in the body. And as you already know, constant inflammation is one of the factors that most damage the cardiovascular system. It weakens artery walls, favors the accumulation of fatty plaques, and significantly increases the risk of hypertension, heart attack, and stroke. Another factor that draws attention is the fact that fig gives a false sense of lightness. Because it is small, many people end up eating several at once without realizing they are ingesting a high amount of sugars and calories. This excess, especially if habitual, can accelerate artery aging and seriously compromise heart health. This does not mean fig needs to be banned from your diet. If consumed with balance and within a varied diet, it can offer important benefits. The danger lies precisely in excess and the false impression that fruits cannot harm in any amount. But here's the warning. If you think fig is concerning, know that there is a fruit even more dangerous for your heart. And it will be revealed only in the last chapter. So stay tuned, because what you will discover will change how you see your diet. Number 9. Dried apricot. Dried apricot is one of those fruits often seen as healthy alternatives for quick snacks. However, what many don't know is that during dehydration, this fruit loses practically all its water and, on the other hand, concentrates very high levels of sugar. And this detail makes all the difference when talking about cardiovascular health. When you eat some pieces of dried apricot, you're practically ingesting the equivalent of several fresh apricots at once, without realizing it. This high concentration of fructose and glucose overloads metabolism, generates glycemic spikes, and favors silent inflammation in the body. And as we have already seen, chronic inflammation is one of the biggest villains for the heart. Moreover, frequent consumption of dried apricot, especially associated with a diet rich in refined carbohydrates, can contribute to increased triglycerides and bad cholesterol, promoting plaque buildup in arteries. This, in turn, drastically raises the risk of hypertension, heart attack, and even stroke. Another relevant problem is that dried apricot, being small and very tasty, tends to be consumed in large amounts without the person realizing it. It's very easy to eat a portion that is calorically and metabolically equivalent to several fresh apricots at once, and this puts the cardiovascular system at risk. Therefore, if you want to protect your heart, dried apricot should be treated with great caution. It doesn't need to be banned, but consumed with extreme common sense, in small amounts, and always within a balanced diet rich in natural and fresh foods. And look, as much as dried apricot deserves this warning, it's still far from being the worst of all. There is a fruit, which will be revealed in the last chapter, that carries an even greater risk for your heart, and you probably never imagined this. Number 8. Date. Date is an extremely sweet fruit, often used as a natural sugar substitute in healthy recipes. However, what few people notice is that precisely because it is so sweet, it also hides important dangers for those concerned about heart health. Rich in glucose and fructose, date offers an immediate energy bomb, but one that comes with worrying side effects. When you consume dates in excess, something very easy, since they are small and delicious, your body quickly experiences a blood sugar spike. These frequent spikes are extremely harmful as they increase oxidative stress, favor inflammatory processes, and in the long term, damage artery walls. Moreover, excess circulating sugar causes the body to produce more insulin, which, when it becomes a constant habit, can lead to insulin resistance, a condition directly linked to type 2 diabetes, obesity, and, of course, cardiovascular diseases. Another critical point is that dates are also very caloric. This means that besides overloading metabolism with excess sugar, they can also favor fat accumulation, especially visceral fat, the one that surrounds internal organs and is directly linked to high cardiovascular risk. Therefore, although they are natural and contain important nutrients like fiber, potassium, and antioxidants, dates need to be consumed very moderately. They are not villains if consumed occasionally and in small amounts, but they can turn into a real problem when they enter the routine in an exaggerated way. Here's a reminder: if you're already scared by the effects of dates on your heart, know that the worst is yet to come. The most dangerous fruit for cardiovascular health will be revealed in the last chapter, and what you will discover is really surprising. Number 7. Pineapple. Pineapple is widely recognized as a refreshing, digestive fruit full of beneficial nutrients. However, even healthy foods, when consumed without moderation, can have opposite effects, and pineapple is no exception when it comes to heart health. Despite its digestive properties, excessive consumption can represent a significant problem. One of the critical points about pineapple is its high acid concentration, especially citric acid. When consumed excessively, these acids can irritate the stomach, favoring episodes of gastroesophageal reflux, which, believe it or not, has a direct link with heart health. That's because frequent reflux can trigger increased oxidative stress, besides causing chronic discomfort that impacts sleep quality and metabolic balance. Additionally, pineapple contains a considerable amount of fructose. Consumed in large portions, it can indeed raise blood sugar levels, triggering inflammatory processes that silently deteriorate artery health. And as you already know, chronic inflammation is one of the main causes of hypertension, atherosclerosis, and other cardiovascular problems. Another point to pay attention to is the relation between excess fructose and visceral fat accumulation. When the liver is overloaded by large amounts of this sugar, it converts the surplus into fat, increasing risks for the heart, even if the original food seems harmless. Therefore, although pineapple has its qualities, consumption must be balanced. Including it in the diet can be very beneficial, but only if the quantities are appropriate and it doesn't replace other sources of fibers and important nutrients. And if you think the risks so far are worrying, wait until you discover the fruit at the top of the list of the most dangerous for your heart. It will be revealed in the last chapter, and I guarantee you'll never look at it the same way again. Number 6. Persimmon. Persimmon is a juicy, sweet fruit extremely appreciated by those who like intense flavors. However, precisely because it is so sweet, it brings an important warning for those concerned with heart health. Its high fructose content can be a trap for metabolism, especially when consumed in excess. The big problem with persimmon lies in its glycemic load. Because it is rich in natural sugar, it can provoke rapid blood glucose spikes. And these spikes, when frequent, favor silent inflammatory processes that in the medium and long term weaken arteries, increase the risk of hypertension, and contribute to fatty plaque formation in blood vessels. Furthermore, excess sugar favors increases in triglycerides and bad cholesterol levels. These factors are directly linked to the development of cardiovascular diseases such as heart attack, stroke, and heart failure. And the worst, these damages happen silently, often without symptoms in the initial stages. Another worrying point is that persimmon, due to its soft texture and sweet flavor, tends to be consumed in large quantities at once. It is very easy to eat 2, 3, or even 4 persimmons without noticing the metabolic impact this can cause, especially for those already predisposed to diabetes or heart problems. Therefore, despite being rich in antioxidants, vitamins, and fibers, persimmon needs to be consumed in moderation. Balance is the key word when it comes to protecting the heart without giving up pleasant flavors. And I already warn you, if until now you have been surprised by the hidden risks in such common fruits, know that the worst of all will be revealed in the last chapter, and it will definitely leave you amazed. Number 5. Watermelon. Watermelon is a favorite fruit for many, especially on hot days. Refreshing, tasty, and with a high water content, it seems like a harmless and healthy choice. But there is a little-known detail about watermelon that deserves a lot of attention, especially when it comes to cardiovascular health. The big problem lies in its extremely high glycemic index. This means that when consuming watermelon, the sugar present in the fruit is rapidly absorbed by the body, causing sharp blood glucose spikes. These spikes generate inflammation, favor insulin resistance, and increase the risks of developing diabetes and, consequently, heart diseases. Furthermore, excess circulating glucose promotes damage to artery walls, making them more rigid and prone to fatty plaque buildup. This opens the path for very serious problems such as heart attack, stroke, and heart failure. Another relevant point is that because it is mostly water and sweet tasting, many people do not realize how much they are consuming. It is very easy to eat large slices of watermelon at once, which intensifies this negative effect on metabolism and the cardiovascular system. This does not mean you need to completely exclude watermelon from your life. If consumed in small portions and within a balanced diet, it can indeed be a refreshing and beneficial option. The problem, as always, lies in excess and frequency. As surprising as discovering these risks is, believe it, watermelon is still not the worst fruit on our list. The most dangerous of all, the one that offers a real and significant risk to your heart, will be revealed in the last chapter. Get ready, because the revelation will change your perception of food. Number 4. Orange. Orange is widely known for its benefits, mainly due to its high vitamin C concentration and antioxidant power. However, not everything is rosy when it comes to heart health. When consumed in excess, this very popular fruit can become a true silent enemy of the cardiovascular system. The first point of attention is its fructose content, which, although natural, is still sugar. When we consume large amounts of oranges or even in juice form, which concentrates even more sugar and eliminates fibers, the impact on metabolism is direct. The result? Blood sugar spikes, increased oxidative stress, and inflammatory processes that silently damage arteries. Additionally, citric acid present in oranges, when consumed in excess, can cause irritation in the gastrointestinal tract and worsen reflux symptoms. The problem is that chronic reflux is associated with increased inflammatory stress in the body, which, in turn, has a direct impact on heart health. Another critical factor is the false sense that drinking orange juice is always a healthy choice. A single glass of juice can contain the equivalent sugar of 3 or 4 oranges, but without the fibers that help control the absorption of that sugar. This overloads the pancreas, leads to insulin resistance, and consequently raises the risk of heart problems. Balanced orange consumption, preferably fresh with pulp, is a good strategy. But overdoing it, especially as juice, is a mistake that can cost dearly for cardiovascular health. And attention, if you were shocked so far, get ready, because in the last chapter we will reveal, without a doubt, the worst fruit for your heart. And the reason will surprise you deeply. Number 3. Very ripe apple. Apple is worldwide recognized as a symbol of healthy eating, but it is important to understand that even it can have risks, depending on the stage of ripeness. A very ripe apple, the one that is very sweet, soft, and even with some spots on the peel, carries a significantly higher sugar content than its greener, firmer version. As the apple ripens, part of its starch turns into glucose and fructose, quickly raising its glycemic index. This means that consuming too many very ripe apples overloads your body with a significant amount of sugar that, although natural, is harmful to metabolic balance and especially to the cardiovascular system. The problem with this glucose spike is that it triggers silent inflammatory processes favoring artery hardening, increasing bad cholesterol, and raising triglycerides. These three factors are directly linked to the development of diseases such as atherosclerosis, hypertension, heart attack, and stroke. Another worrying detail is that precisely because it is a low-calorie and very practical fruit, many people end up consuming several ripe apples throughout the day without realizing that this excess fructose may be overloading their liver, arteries, and, of course, their heart. Therefore, the guidance is clear. Prefer slightly ripe, firm apples that have a lower glycemic load and more structured fibers. This way, you benefit from antioxidant properties without overloading the cardiovascular system. And attention, if until now you've already noticed that even the most common fruits can hide traps, get ready. In the last chapter, I'll tell you which fruit is the most dangerous of all for your heart, and the reveal may be shocking. Number 2. Dried fruits in general. Dried fruits are champions of popularity when it comes to practical and theoretically healthy snacks. But here lies a huge danger often ignored. When any fruit goes through the dehydration process, it loses almost all of its water, and consequently, its sugar and calories become highly concentrated. And this transforms these fruits into real glycemic bombs for the body. Think simply, a handful of dried banana, mango, or dehydrated apple is equivalent, in sugar terms, to several whole fresh fruits. This concentrated consumption sharply raises blood glucose, increases insulin production, and favors chronic inflammation, three factors directly associated with artery aging and the development of cardiovascular diseases. Furthermore, it's very common for dried fruits to be treated with preservatives like sulfites to ensure longer shelf life and attractive appearance. These additives, besides being potentially allergenic, also increase oxidative stress in the body, one of the biggest enemies of heart health. Another serious problem lies in the fact that dried fruits are extremely caloric. A small portion that fits in the palm of your hand can contain as many calories as a complete meal. This contributes not only to weight gain but also to the accumulation of visceral fat, the one that most threatens heart function. Therefore, dried fruits should be seen as foods that deserve a lot of care. Their consumption should be sporadic and in very small amounts. And don't be fooled by the label natural. Natural doesn't mean harmless. And look, if you think dried fruits are dangerous, get ready, because in the next chapter you will discover which fruit is, in fact, the most harmful to your heart. What I'm going to reveal may completely change your view of healthy eating. Number 1. Dried mango. We have reached the most important chapter of this video. And yes, the fruit that holds the title of most dangerous for your heart is dried mango. You might be wondering, how so? After all, it's just a fruit, right? Wrong. The dehydration process turns mango, which is already naturally sweet, into a real sugar and calorie bomb. A small portion of dried mango is equivalent, in sugar terms, to several fresh mangoes. But unlike fresh mango, the dried version loses almost all its water and soluble fibers, leaving only an extremely high concentration of glucose and fructose. And this detail has a devastating impact on the cardiovascular system. When you consume dried mango, your body is exposed to an absurd amount of rapidly absorbed sugar. This causes violent blood sugar spikes, overloads the pancreas, favors insulin resistance, and especially generates a constant inflammatory state in the arteries. This is the perfect environment for the development of atherosclerosis, hypertension, and, of course, heart attacks and strokes. Furthermore, excess fructose is quickly converted into fat in the liver, contributing to visceral fat formation. And this fat is by far the most dangerous for heart health, significantly increasing the risk of heart failure, arrhythmias, and even sudden death. And as if that weren't enough, dried mango is extremely caloric. A small portion can contain more calories than a complete and balanced meal. This without satiety, without the benefits of fibers, and with a devastating metabolic effect. For all these reasons, dried mango undoubtedly takes the spot as the worst fruit for the heart. If you really care about your cardiovascular health, this is a fruit you need to cross off your diet immediately. Choosing well the foods you consume is literally a decision that can save your life. And if you want to keep receiving the best videos for your health, subscribe to the channel, because it exists for only one reason, to make you a healthier person with better quality of life. Helping you is my mission. In the video appearing now on your screen, I reveal the 12 irreversible benefits for your body when you use castor oil every day. Click on the screen and check it out.